Hey guys, we're back talking about 35 years of flavoring lives at Bahama Bucks. But today we brought in Eric Lee. Eric, introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks, Blake. Yes, my name's Eric Lee. I'm the CFO of Bahama Bucks, and I have been with Bahama Bucks since basically inception 35 years ago as a student at Texas Tech.
Oh, Reckham. Look at that.
Reckham.
All right, man, let's dive right in. So, hey, Eric, did you ever expect that taking the infamous call from Blake would result in a lifelong career and partnership?
Well, I got to tell you, that story's been told wrong for several years, and I just want to make sure that we understand exactly what happened on that phone call. There was a call, and it was true. He was looking for my partner, not my partner, my roommate. That sounds terrible, thank you. But my roommate at the time. And whenever he found out my roommate wasn't there, there was an awkward pause. And it was like he didn't really want to ask the next question, but he felt a little forced to. And so then he's like, well, do you know what you're doing? And so I was kind of like the last option that was there, which ended up being the best option. So I'd say all through my life, most of the times those awkwardness or those things that have possibly turned out to be, not exactly planned has been the best options out there. So I couldn't have imagined the journey that you went through at the time. It was just the opportunity, and it was a blessing. It always has been.
So Eric and I were friends, don't get me wrong, but I knew Landon from high school. I just met Eric in college. And so, it was probably a little bit awkward, but yeah, man, I'm glad I paused and we fought through that social awkwardness. And
Yes.
You actually, do you remember what you said though? Yours wasn't a straight yes, it was a conditional yes.
It was, yeah. I had already applied for another job out at Sam's. And I knew that because as a college student, I could get 10% off my groceries if I go out to Sam's. And that was a big deal for me at the time. And so, I had applied. And in fact, that's what I was looking forward to doing at the time. I had another job. I was working part-time. And so then, when this one popped up, I jumped at it. And then, I was really going to be there for just a short term.
Yeah. And I loved how you responded to me. You said, hey, I'll come to work for you. But if Sam's Club calls me, I'm going to go to work for them.
That's true. That's what happened. Yeah.
So I think my follow-up question would be, have they called you, sir?
So they have not. In fact, they probably didn't keep my application, to be honest with you. But
Their loss is all I have to
their
say.
loss.
Their
Hey,
loss.
maybe so.
They thought he's just here for free groceries. I didn't know to ask that.
Hey, if
So-
I'd have known that, though.
So if Kippi would have been the one, I think she would have felt sorry for me and hired me anyway, just out of a need for sympathy. And so anyway, it worked out all the way around for me.
I like how Kippi always says it. She says, you're the first paid employee. Because I think at that time, we were just barely cutting it away. And so she was like, what? He gets a paycheck? And then that ruined the whole thing because now she wanted one.
Yeah. And just in case you want to know, that was $3.15 an hour
Hey.
Is what going rates were for working at that time. So
Again, overpaid.
overpaid, probably so.
That's great.
In fact, early days, we would calculate the day's sales impact by whether I made more or the store made more.
That was fun.
And so it would, you'd come in and say, hey, who's ahead, And so if I'd worked 10 hours, we hadn't made more than $30, that was the way it went that time.
Yep. Who had the busiest
I
shift?
think you won the first 5 years.
There were several days. Now, we did fill time by learning how to juggle. And so
that's true.
in case it didn't work out, we could have joined a carnival somewhere possibly.
Yep.
But
Yep.
we learned how to juggle lemons, which
I don't want to talk about what happened to those lemons, though. Like,
they got a little squishy as we were practicing for sure.
yeah.
All right. How did we divvy up tasks and responsibilities in the early days?
Yeah. Well, do I go first? I don't know. I think we really did lean into our strengths.
Sure,
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it wasn't, we had a discussion. I think it naturally happened. I will never forget one time Eric talked to me about numbers and how he had all these tricks. We were multiplying things, and he had done number sense in high school or elementary. Anyway, it's in school. And he had all these tricks for how he could figure out numbers. And I was like, oh my gosh, Eric, like you do all the counting, and we fell into our strengths naturally.
Yeah.
And I think that's whether that's just how the Lord designed it. I don't know any other way to explain it, because Blake was always gifted in the creativity side and coming up with great new fun, either images that we were going to brand things that we were going to do. But Eric always like to be a part of the invention. He's also an inventor, but it was more the flavor profiles and then the numbers sides of things. But you're also gifted in numbers, but Eric was stronger in that vein where you're higher creativity and creation of things. And then I have always liked the people side of it and managing the shop and doing the schedules and interviewing and things like that. And so we just kind of each fell into the lanes, I think, where we landed in our strengths. I don't know if y'all would agree.
No, I would agree. And by tricks, I think she means math. You knew math, and it was just so cool to Kippi.
No, it's like you do all these like little, what's the word? Like you could do multiplication, not like 8 times 8. I'm talking like 118 times 34 or something.
Yeah. So in number sense, they do have certain tricks or tips
Yes.
you can in order to calculate, because you can't write down anything other than the answer once they give you the problem. And so you got to just learn how to kind of do it another way sometimes. So
Speaking of that, I do remember negotiating contracts and things like that. I loved walking in with Eric to some of those real estate deals because he could do math faster than they could do it on a computer or on their calculator. And they would just start throwing out some numbers. They were like, no, we can't do that, but we could do this. And we would walk out and high five because he's like, I cannot believe they took that deal. They just don't know math. And I'm like, no, they don't know your math. And so he was always gifted in that. But to your point, I think it was just as friends, we knew each other as friends. And as we were working together, we just knew who was gifted at what. And then those common tasks fell to all of us. If we're going to clean, we were all cleaning together. And I think part of it is we just kind of knew each other. We knew our strengths, and then what really we should be doing and what we shouldn't be. And I think really the partnership that we've had, not only with Mr. Lee, but Tom and Cindy, and who are my mom and dad, was kind of the same thing. We knew, man, we're going to let Eric run in that lane. And we learned early on, some of our biggest fights came from when we tried to run in each other's lanes, because Eric clearly knew you weren't going to do numbers, and he clearly knew Eric should not be a part of marketing early on, or whatever it was. And just from
T-shirt
some
design.
of those things,
T-shirt design.
Well, what was that slogan you came up with that got
there
you
were
kicked
several
off?
slogans for T-shirts that came up with. And so one of them, we were just brainstorming, and I was trying to go off the Chick-fil-A thing. And so it was, kill a penguin or something like that. It was
eat a snow, save a penguin.
Or
kill a penguin. And we're like,
kill a penguin. Yeah.
Kill a penguin.
And so it
We're
was like, eat more chicken kind of was the idea. It didn't come out exactly that way. But anyway, whenever you first asked that, though, what I was thinking about was divvy up tasks within the store.
that's
so
good.
early on, what would happen, in my opinion, was it depended on who was coming through the drive-through or the walk-up. If she was cute,
That's right.
I was switching duties really quickly right there. Give me a pen and right on the bottom of the cup.
We were
my
just
gosh,
like, Eric, you're
Eric.
on single man duty. So
Yeah.
we'd send him to all the cute girls.
Oh, that's funny.
But I was going to say what Blake touched on was, for a while there, we were running in all the lanes together. And we learned that didn't actually work.
Yeah.
It's nice to have everybody on the same page, but whenever you have different people with different skill sets, we had to learn to trust each other in those different skill sets and release that and not worry about that and try to focus on what we were good at, because otherwise we weren't going to make it.
And it's funny because you came on the brand early within those first few weeks or month, whatever it was. And then you were actually later, we've invited you, 2 years later, we both graduate, and I call you up and I'm like, hey man, let's partner up and move forward. And I think at that moment, the next 2 to 3, 4 years, we're really working out, through either arguments or heart to hearts or whatever it is, who's doing what. And it's funny, from those early moments, once we kind of got it set, I think that gave us longevity to the partnership, that I'm going to yield to Eric, man. He's a CFO, or whatever it is. man, the guy knows his stuff. I'm going to trust him. He can make mistakes. He'll own them, and he'll move us forward, because we all had the same heart of, hey, let's just go out and try to win. And same thing with Kippi. And sometimes with three people, it was great because there's always a tiebreaker, whether it's me or whether it's Kippi. Most of the time it was Kippi, which was terrible for her because she does not mind voting against me. And I learned that early on, and that is not an advantage.
Oh my goodness.
But I'd also say core of that was, there's a faith that you have to have whenever tough times come. And if you don't have that, whether it's marriage, business, whatever, that can fracture things. And so it really helped bind for 35 years a core belief and value.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. Foxhole faith, man, because you're in there with us and we're all together. And so that really was a big thing.
Talk about the evolution of Eric at Bahama Bucks from original shop employee to owner to CFO.
Wow. So I don't know if that's me or Eric. I think it's his path. I watched right along. I think all of us kind of were on that same path. And I think what was interesting about it, that I love about Eric's story, my story, Kippi's story, is we cut our teeth in a shop. We really, the first 20 years, all of us really spent time in a store for the most part. It wasn't until later that we really started divvying up, hey, we need to go full-time office and things like that. But I mean, from day one, you always knew this guy's going to be the CFO. There's no doubt about that, just because of his love of numbers and how he would crunch things. And he was doing all the books and payroll anyway.
Well, I mean, we didn't have titles. We were just
we were just working.
Well, who's your marketing? I'm like, today it's Blake, and who's the manager? Well, today it's me, and or who's the person we talked to about inventory? Well, today it's Eric. It depended on who was there and who took the call. And we what did our business cards even? Did they say owner?
Owner.
Yeah,
Owner.
For years it just said
Just
owner.
So there's your evolution, Eric. From
What would you say, Mr. Lee?
Yeah.
Oh, I think anytime you have a small business, you get involved in all parts of it. And eventually, like we did, we just gravitated towards, what we thought made the most sense to help the company out. And so we just went those directions, and we didn't really look back. And early on, we didn't have any people to manage under us. And it wasn't until we got to a little bit of a bigger phase where we needed organization and titles, and we had to learn our way through that as well. And so, I think out of all that, the 20 years of going through the whole process, one of the things that it taught us was servant leadership. And so no matter what title you had, I mean, you were going to, work in a servant facility in order to make it work. And so you could have put any title on any of us and we would have had that attitude. It's just, it made sense to us to gravitate towards what made the brand better and made us more successful.
I love that you brought that term up because it reminds me of something that happened this morning. So this morning, Eric and I typically will be the first people to the office. I mean, the warehouse crew obviously gets there. They have an earlier start time, but front office, we're the first guys there. And I see Eric, and I wave to him, and I've got to get something out of the back of my truck. And he walks up to the building, and it was interesting because he unlocks the building, but then he turns around, and there's just this hat, or call it trash, in our driveway or in our parking lot. Eric goes out, picks it up, unlocks the door, goes in, and throws it away. And I'm like, okay, after all the years that we have still been doing that, that defines a servant leader. When you're not so big, you can't pick up trash in our parking lot. And that was huge. And I was just like, Lord, thank you for giving me that moment to see a man who's our CFO, and on the way in the path that he's walking, there's trash in the parking lot, and he grabs it and throws it away. So well done.
The secret to that's probably my son's hat that he actually threw out.
He's looking for. Yeah, so, fell out of your truck.
After those kids all the time.
Yeah, I get it. No, we're all still picking up trash, it seems like, in the parking lot still. Yeah. So, yeah, well said.
All right. So talk about Bahama Buck's first corporate office and locations. How did we expand?
Oh, wow. So, first corporate locations, I'm almost going our Chandler location, which was your and I's first apartment, 2-bedroom. We had a a single computer with a lawn chair, and that was headquarters. And I just remember I was so jealous because you had a bed. I didn't have a bed. I was sleeping on the floor with a sheet and a pillow. But that was headquarters. And it wasn't until, months later we get married. Not Eric and I, but Kippi and I get married. And we have to get a new apartment or we kicked you out. I think that's what it was. And Eric had his own apartment. We're like, this is the new headquarters. So we added a fax machine and all those things. But
we only had one computer.
Yeah.
And I was still in school. And so I would come to the corporate office sometimes and have to use the computer and the dot
corporate
matrix.
office, Eric's apartment.
Eric's apartment.
Yes.
And he had just made spaghetti rice or some weird concoction that cost him, I don't know, 4 cents a meal. And I would have to stay there to write papers and the dot matrix printer, and we had the fax machine. And I mean, that was the only option that we had, but it worked, We made it work.
Mm-hmm. I remember the first sofa in my 500 square foot studio, and it was there was a Costco across the street from my apartment complex. So I found this sofa over there for really cheap. And so I'm like, hey, Blake, can you help me with this? He's like, sure. We carried that across 6 lanes of traffic to get to the apartment. And that was like heaven. We had a brand new sofa that was there, which was dirt cheap. I mean, it wasn't worth anything.
You sure it wasn't out back?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
No, I still remember that because I'm like, we are carrying a sofa across the street to your apartment.
50,000 cars,
Yeah,
whizzing
it
by
was just
you.
the craziest thing. I'm like, we are those people.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
I don't
Again.
know. We just didn't think a thing about it, though.
Yeah, you just did what you did.
And back then, we did have a fax machine, but we had a modem. And so what would happen is when you placed orders overseas, you have a time differential. And so you'd place the order, and then over in Japan or wherever, they would respond back, but it'd be like 2 a.m. And so back then it was, that was your connection was through a modem. And so you'd pick up the phone line. And as soon as I heard that at the middle of the night, I was trying to plug in the phone line into the modem in the back of the computer so that we could get a fax coming in. And so it was crazy. There were flavors in both of our, you had flavors in y'all's garage that we were storing for the corporate office, and we had signs, and we had all sorts of stuff in both apartments that we were using as a warehouse at the time.
When we finally downsized and we got an efficiency too, and it had a garage, we thought we had made it because that was our first corporate warehouse.
It was.
Because we could hold all the flavors and things like that.
Clearly not a car. We would never want to park a car in there.
No, why would you do that? That is, you don't want to pay for that. You pay for the warehouse space. Yeah. But those lean years, what is interesting, so when we finally did get our first really corporate warehouse / office, we were thrilled.
Yeah.
A little too sweet with,
1,500 square feet.
1,500, yeah.
And the back was maybe 1,000 or so. We thought
He
it was.
remembers the numbers.
We thought it was just like huge. And
It was.
And for us, it wasn't even half empty or third empty. And then all of a sudden, before we knew it, we kept growing a little bit, and then, you fill it up.
Yeah, we kept adding on slowly, and
So do y'all remember the first forklift we had?
I do. And I remember we bought it at auction.
Yeah. It was called a Big Joe.
That's exactly right. And Big Joe did not move on its own. Big Joe needed Eric and Blake to push it.
You had to push it and then line it up in order to fork things up and down.
I wonder y'all aren't
So
dead.
it is funny that we were the original warehouse crew too, because it was all of us just for an extended season, a decade maybe. So.
And then it grew so much that it was like a Jenga puzzle to get in and out of that warehouse. It was just like crazy. And I remember the first colorings we brought in that warehouse. And we open up the container. It's a small round container. Open it up, it's red. And it did a poof.
Yeah, it floated.
And that stuff was so concentrated, it was microscopic. You couldn't see it. It got through the whole warehouse. It would be on your skin, and you couldn't even see it until you washed or started sweating, and then it would come red right off of you.
Every box, everything had red little
everywhere.
powder on it.
Oh, it was terrible. And then I remember your brother, Ty, he was helping us as we were putting shelving up.
Yeah.
And
He talks about he almost died.
To this day, he says he almost lost his life.
Well, it wasn't OSHA approved, I'm almost certain.
Oh, no.
But as he was putting on the wire shelving on the top level, it kind of gave way, and he shot through it to the next level, to the next.
He fell 4 feet, and you think he would have fell all 16 feet, but he only
my
fell
word.
4 feet, and it was him who put the shelf on. We take no responsibility on that
Yeah,
one.
we think about our warehouse today, you know, how it looked so much different, and we were not even close to being safe compared to what we are today and what we worry about. And then all the procedures in the store, how they've changed and grown
Yeah.
and gotten better, the technology, everything. has
Oh,
just-
yeah.
Well, and we were young enough we could climb up there and grab stuff, and now you
Yeah.
know we got
Oh, yeah.
lifts and everything else and harnesses and safety stuff. So.
Rolling staircase things.
Yeah,
I mean,
the rolling
I don't know,
staircase
that's
was
not the
awesome,
word for
too.
it, but we just climb. But we would just climb up the shelving.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, catch, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So we've come a little ways there.
Yes.
All right, what are some of our favorite memories from building the brand together? All right, Miss Kippi, kick us off.
Okay. I have to go back to the days in Tempe, Arizona. Just the corporate office when we finally did move into that one office location that wasn't too far from our shop. And it was just the three of us. Blake and I would work Friday night, Eric would work Saturday night, and then we would switch it the next weekend because we were open until 12 or 1 a.m. And that's when we made the majority of our money, was Friday and Saturday evening. And then Monday through Thursday was crickets. But we tag teamed everything. But I also just remember we had a lot of fun, and we didn't have any money, but we did a lot of fun things. Like we would find new things in Arizona to go do, whether it was that Renaissance Festival. We just did dumb stuff that was free, you know. And Eric would always try the new things I was trying to cook. I'd have him over, and we had hamburgers that were like this big. You know, I was trying all these new things, and Eric was always down for whatever. And we were just a family together, and it was the three of us. And we had a couple of buddies that came along that were neighbors in the apartment complex, but I just feel like those were just some really enriching, like just a deep rooted times where we just pulled together. You figure it out. And, Eric would come back to Lubbock and help with whatever was going on. Blake and I would stay in Arizona, and then we'd flip, and we would go to Lubbock and help with what they needed. And Eric would hold the fort down in Arizona. And we just continued to keep growing and learning and opening franchises little by little. And I just, those were the memories I have of us, Eric going to the Super Bowl when the Super Bowl came, and you saved all your money and you bought one ticket. Did you buy it on the street or something?
Yeah, I did.
And we were living through you. We're like, you went through all the crowds, and you told us, I think the Cowboys actually played in that game. And I remember those kind of things. But, and I just remember we lived life together. And, I don't know. Those were just some sweet memories that you can't replace because you're building a business, but we were in a new area together, growing up together kind of too at the same time.
Yeah.
But there's so many memories in there when we all turned red in the back warehouse. And I think we did a poof with blue at some point somewhere along the way too, where we all turned blue and everything was blue and you didn't touch anything back there. And creating the smoothies was a big memory for me when we decided to do smoothies. And there's just a lot. I mean, the Rolodex keeps going. And sorry, that's a very old word, but my memory just gets flooded with some things.
The first store was handcrafted, with, myself, and then obviously Dad and family help, but then my granddads were there to help craft that first one. But we never talk about the second store. Because now you have two young, dudes out here and Kippi as well. And we're like, okay, we'll just build the next one too, because we were getting bids and it was way too expensive. But there's two distinct moments I remember in that second store. The first was we had always, remember the big thing for us is because we had those poles that we would wrap with wood. And we said, okay, we're going to put
Wrap
those
with
in
rope.
this next shot. Yeah.
You said wood, wrap with rope.
Wrap with rope,
Yeah.
forgive me.
Wow.
And so we're going to put those on the walls, which became an icon for Bahama Bucks for the next 25, 30 years. But we went to pick those up, and I had a Jeep, and we had rented this short little trailer. and they loaded like 4,000 pounds of this wood in our
We ordered
car.
twice as much as we actually needed.
Yeah, because you're good at math, clearly.
Yeah.
So we order all this, and we're hauling it down the highway. We get up to 45, and that thing starts bucking us because
We're on Interstate 10 at
And
the time.
we clear out. We clear out 5 lanes of traffic. That thing is throwing us everywhere.
It was picking us up and moving us across 3 lanes.
We thought we were going to die, and we're in North Phoenix. And Jody Stocks was with us. He was helping us, and he is screaming in the back. And, you know, if you know anything about pulling a trailer, one of the things your father will always tell you is you got to outrun it. If it ever starts wobbling, you just hammer down and try to go faster. But that little 4-cylinder Jeep had no chance, so we're just trying to stop. But anyway, we finally get off. It takes us 2 hours to get back. And I'll just never forget, you know, having a co-pilot there who would risk his life for lumber. That was awesome. And then the second memory when we're building that store is Eric and I, again, without the guidance of any of our fathers or, you know, any construction guy, we bought metal shelving and we're going to put it up, that wire racking up there. And I'll never forget, we needed to cut it. We didn't have the proper tools. So we're like, let's just take a skill saw and we'll cut the metal racking with that. And you're holding it and I'm grinding through, and we are throwing teeth off of that saw, and they're sticking into the wall, and we keep hearing stuff and we don't know what it is, but we just kept grinding through.
So let's paint this a little bit better. I'm holding it facing Blake, who has the skill saw, and these things are zooming by my ears. These metal teeth, which would probably have killed me
Most
had they have
likely,
hit
you're
me.
right.
And so, anyway, we're like, oh my word, what are we doing? What are we
I
doing?
felt so dumb after I was like, that's a wood blade on a metal saw. How about that? I wasn't supposed to use a wood blade.
Oh, I do remember.
But those
that.
are
What's
the
the
things
other
you
one
learn
when y'all went
together.
to California, though? And y'all, we were
Oh,
looking
that's
at one of our
true.
big pieces of equipment that we still use to this day.
Yeah.
And y'all went
We
and
were
looked.
trying to, you know, such a fun story, you know, and
there's-
I'll let you tee it up because
Yeah,
we-
so this place is in California that we're driving to, and you know, we had just a horrid way. I mean, the transmission drops in Indio, California, so we're stuck. We have luggage. We're walking out on the highway trying to get to a rental shop, and we're under 20, and we can't rent anything. And so, and finally, you know, we beg somebody. They let us rent something.
Yeah, they took my mother's credit card over the phone, and we rent a car finally.
Yeah, and we head towards California. We're looking for a place to sleep that night. Blake's got the map out. We didn't have phones or anything, so he has a map out, and we choose this place, and it is terrible. It is like a murderer's hotel. And we wake up the next morning, we look around at the sheet. We slept with everything on.
Yeah, we
were
slept in our clothes. It
the
was so
whole
bad.
thing. It was so bad. And then we finally find the place, and it all worked out. We got the information that we needed, because at the time we were using like 20 chest freezers to make our ice, and we couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
And this one machine eliminated all those chest freezers. And so it ended up, but
It was worth
it
it.
worked out, except when we got on the truck wasn't ready, so we got on a bus.
We bought a bus. We returned the rental car, and they're like, no, the bus station is down there. It was like 2.5 miles. So we find ourselves on the highway with non-roller luggage, walking down the highway. We get on this bus, and I'll never forget what happened. It was so funny because
Greyhound
yeah,
bus?
it's
Yeah.
Greyhound bus. And we bought 2 tickets. We're on the Greyhound bus. I'm sitting behind Eric. He's on an aisle seat. I'm on an aisle seat. The lady who gets on, she's like, don't tell anybody. And she shows him a bottle that she brought on. I'm not supposed to be drinking, right? And she is this older, scary lady that you're just like, oh, wow.
And she pulled out a bratwurst
Yes.
and onion sandwich and starts eating that. And as soon as I saw that, she started talking to me. I fake
He
asleep.
pretends he's asleep. And I'm like, what a coward. So she turns around to look at me. And the minute she turns around, I'm like, I pretended I was asleep the whole way. I was scared to death.
That was a terrible ride home.
It was the worst trip of my life to this day.
It was terrible, actually. But it ended up making a
Yeah, it
huge
was
difference.
revolutionary,
It
though.
was one of
was.
the biggest impacts we've ever
Yep.
had on the brand with
Yeah.
that piece of equipment.
For sure.
And we risked our lives on multiple occasions just on a trip, all because a transmission failed in my truck.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
So the thing I will remember over time is probably more of the people, and you think about, you know, the early crews that you worked with, and some of the things that they did today would be outlawed. I remember when they Dusty's, I can't remember Dusty's last name, but
Dusty Inlow.
he had his pickup back there, and they thought it'd be a great idea. They lined his pickup bed with poly bags and then turned the water hose on in the back of his bed, and it filled up his truck bed full of water, and it blew out his tires. It got so heavy. So, there was stuff like that a lot. I remember
Where you would come in, when you came into the original shop, not this one in Arizona, but in the original store, remember if you walked out the back door, they dumped a whole, the stuff that would collect in the sink, the sludge. They collected that in a bucket, and you just got sludged as you left your shift. Mm-hmm. Oh,
that's a rite of passage.
Yeah, I'll always remember Ben Heller. He takes off running out of the store one day. We have a line from Here to Kingdom Come, and he just takes off running, goes across the highway, jumps on a train that's passing by, rides it for about a mile, and then comes back to his shift.
But remember, the crowd went crazy.
It was nuts.
They went crazy when he hopped on that train. Everybody's like, yeah. And he just always wanted to do that. Yep. And he just couldn't stand it. That train would come by every day, and he's like, today's my day.
Or the one kid, I forgot his name, that he was so hungry he bought a barbecue sandwich. He was shaving.
Montoya.
He put the barbecue sandwich on the grill, and he would eat it as he was shaving.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah. He was short-lived at our.
Yeah, he didn't make it.
He did not last long.
I mean, you can hop on a train, but you're going to eat a
sandwich
in front of people.
the invention of mercy hire. After that, it was like, we'll allow one, but then that was it, Oh, my word.
There was some bad stuff in there. There really was.
But those kids, there were a lot of good kids that were there.
Was.
They loved
And we were kids. We were kids hiring kids.
Yeah. And they had a heart for it, and they worked hard, and, it was always really good. But the rules, it was just a different environment back then, too.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. What other stories stick out?
I'll tell you on the other side, I mean, there were some hard stories. So we would have an annual board meeting and go through, what all Bucks, where we were at and how things had been performed and where we were headed. And I got to tell you, for about 25 years, that meeting was terrible because we were just having a hard time. Mm-hmm. And you guys being married, trying to raise a family along with that was not easy. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of tears that were shed during those meetings. And, there were times where you just had to turn it over to faith and pray about it because it just did not look like it made any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric, we were asked earlier, why didn't we give up? I'll flip it. Why didn't we give up? And, I'll flip it to you. What kept you in the game?
Yeah. So what you saw within the whole brand, I mean, we had each other, but then the product, the brand, it gave so much enjoyment to people that tried it. And the thing was, if we can get them to try it, you could always see them coming back as guests. And they would come back and they were telling their friends and convincing them of why they needed to try it, because everybody was like skeptical when they first came in. But you knew you had something when you saw the environment, the crowd, all those kind of things. And it was just stay with it long enough. You'll show people what you have, and this thing's going to work. Mm-hmm. And so the brand itself stood on its own to me and said, it's worth investing in.
Yeah.
The long term is here. Stick it out, make it work.
And it's funny because early days we'd have those people that would come in and they knew we were owners and we were working there. But it was funny once that point where it grew beyond us and nobody even knew who we were. And that was so beautiful because the brand became bigger than who we were.
That's why I always want to tell owners that are out there that are struggling, right? Because we were struggling. I mean, our first day we did $50. Yeah. And I mean, that was a struggle for months to get that turned around. But the Bahama Bucks itself has enough to make you make it through. You can make it through with this brand if you put the effort into it, because you've got all the tools that are there. You've got the products, you've got the environment. People will believe in that if you'll stick with it and create the right environment.
I agree.
Yeah.
One thing that I think we carried through from shops into corporate were just those crazy challenges we started doing at corporate, and all the fun games and all the wonderful things that we still do at the corporate office or the support center to do that. But one that stands out to me that we only did once and then we stopped doing it. And I want to set the record straight because Mr. Lee, you did win the first and only official taco eating contest. And it came about because we remember all those college kids that were bragging about how many, I went to Taco Villa or Taco Bell, I ate 3 tacos. We're like, dude, I can eat 20. And that's where it really started. And I don't remember the exact number, but you as champion, and I think Ingram was co-champion or he was right behind you. Where did the tacos end?
So the first time we did that was in Arizona with the warehouse.
That's right.
And
That's right.
And then I think that was through Del Taco. And I don't remember. It's like I think it was 22. Anyway, so I eat those tacos and put those kids to shame. And so we decided, hey, let's do that in Lubbock. That'd be an awesome idea.
That's right.
So we have it again, and we have Ingram, and there's some other people that were there we were all eating tacos. And at 19, I tapped out. I was so sick. I threw up all day after that.
You remember it shut the office down. Ingram's throwing up. You're throwing up.
I think Ingram did a lot better than I did. It was bad.
And Ingram was our warehouse manager. And he hung in there.
Oh, yeah.
But all those college kids that thought they could eat all those tacos.
Tapping out at 4, you're like, why even bother?
Man. So warming up.
It just wanted lunch.
I'll never do that again. It was bad.
Yeah, we don't do that one anymore.
Yeah.
No.
That was fun. Hey, you also held the record for the Punisher.
Yeah.
Punisher is one of the Bahama Bucks Olympic events where we take a large snow, you make it, and it's how fast you can eat it. So talk about your experience of being a world record holder with the Punisher.
So the one thing that I can do is I don't get a brain freeze very much. And so I can just keep eating cold stuff. And so we decided to put a corporate team together one year to compete against the stores to show them, the all-star team basically. Yeah. And so that was the one event I knew I could probably help with the most. And so it's a large snow, you flavor it, and then as soon as it's go, you eat it as fast as you can. And so I've got an extra large mouth to go along with the heat sensitivity. So when I ate that thing, I took the top off, dumped it in, ate it. And when I looked up, it was like 29.7 or 29.8 is what my time.
Seconds.
29.8 seconds. And then I looked at the crowd and their mouths were like, we were wide open. They couldn't believe.
We were mystified, man. We're like, I've never seen anything like that in our life.
So, and then, 3 years later, this kid at one of our stores, he'd been getting so close every year. And finally, he beat that record.
Yeah, he did. But I'm telling you, you not only did, I think you were the first person to break a minute or something like that, you like almost cut it in half.
Yeah.
And it's like watching the first human run a 5-second 100-yard dash. We were just like, we didn't know what to do with it after you came up and you're like, done. And we're like, good heavens.
Yeah.
Very impressed.
I told my wife about that. I was so proud of myself. She looked at me, she said, that's disgusting. Not proud at all.
Well, anytime we would sample flavors, though, remember we'd make the little 1-ounce taster cups. I would get a spoon and taste it. Eric was always like, and I'm like, Eric, it might not be good, but that's how he tasted everything. It was like I'm doing the whole shot, all in, and gonna go for it. So
Eric, remarkable because you led R&D for the first 2-3 decades almost, and then Matt Ewing's since taken over. But what were some of the creations, good and bad, that stand out to you in those early years?
Yeah, we thought we really had a good one. I was real excited about this one because we had the colorings that went poof everywhere, and so we learned we could color a lot of stuff. And so one of them inside the shop is we decided to do this comic called Twisted Flavors. And Twisted Flavors was you got a strawberry flavor and we're going to make it green instead of red. So and we were coming off that decade where you had green ketchup. They were sampling all these different colors with these condiments and stuff. And all of them failed miserably, but hey, I knew ours was going to be a winner, right? So we launched this. We got 5 different flavors. They're colored differently, and we launched this thing. We put it out there, and we realized really quickly that the customers did not read, and they were getting mad at our crew because
we changed them all.
Yeah,
so grape was yellow, or whatever I think.
Right.
And so when someone ordered a grape, we're like, here you go.
They would argue with you.
They would.
Yeah.
And so it caused so much angst amongst the the guests that the crew was they were getting badgered about this,
Yeah.
remaking stuff. We had to scrap that one
Yeah.
within like 3 or 4 days. We
I
had
know
to just
it
take
didn't even run
down.
the full LTO time.
I mean, it was terrible. So that was bad. I had a lot of bad ones. So the one that I'd say tasted very realistic was pancakes and syrup.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately nobody wants a soggy pancake with syrup on it. But that's what we were given on was, pancakes and syrup. And it was realistic as all get out.
One thing I want to give you credit for, because it was such a, if I almost say food science breakthrough, was your endeavors. And I know I was a sidekick along the way, and I was working machinery side, and you're working food science side. But it was the invention of Snow Blast, because we truly were trying to make a dairy-free, soft serve type of product.
Yeah.
And it was amazing once you broke the code to that.
Well, and we were really wanting to prepackage something because we realized if we could go mobile with something pre-packed, then we could just hand it out and take cash. That's the only way we were going to make a lot of money. And so when we went down there and we were testing out some different equipment, I just remember after we tried it with one piece of equipment, we looked at each other and we just grinned and we nodded and we knew that one was it.
Yeah.
And so we made that product. It was great. It was a very good product. Even, fresh made, you couldn't beat it. And anyway, that was our first launch into Snow Blast. And it, on a local level, it sold great. It was just distributing it past that level that we could never break the code on because it had to be frozen.
Yep.
And so what we're doing now is like 10 times better, I mean, with Snow Blast. But, Snow Blast had a lot of heartache for me because it had so much promise and we could never tap it, you know. So, but
what a beautiful product.
Yeah.
How to get that off and to invent something like that was just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Now, the first time we did that, we really didn't know what flavor to do because we had a whole menu of flavors. And so we want to test market that. And we had to use our clear cups because we didn't have enough money to print any cups. And so now we're going through, and since it's a clear cup, we're like, dude, we're going to make this color pop. I mean, the kids are going to love this. So let's load up the color and blah, blah, blah. And we go out to a football game, and we're testing out different flavors. Well, we took grape out. Might have been Gilligan's grape.
No, it was
or
blue raspberry.
Blue
It was
raspberry.
blue
Sorry, you're right.
raspberry, yeah.
And so go ahead.
No, this is all
is
you.
your story, Eric.
So we're out there and we've tested like 40 different flavors and blue raspberry. This is the one. So I colored this thing up. And so we're selling a truckload of it. It's in Phoenix. It's hot during a football game. We're handing
McClintock
out
High, I believe.
McClintock High. So after halftime, Blake says, hey, you know what? I'm going to go look up in the stands and see how many people are eating our
I
product.
thought you went up.
You and or I went.
It was
Whoever
me
yeah,
up?
I went with
You went-
whoever it was.
you
Well, I
went
told
there.
a lie. I thought it was you that went up.
And you came back and you said, Eric, we got to pack up.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, everybody's mouths that
It's
are eating
black.
it are black.
Like it wasn't blue. It was like
black.
dark blue.
I had loaded up so much with blue, it was turning everybody's mouth black. We get out of that place, and the next day the phone calls. So they started coming in from worried parents because their kids were peeing different colors. There was all bold green coming out. They didn't know what was wrong with it. It was all food dye. It was coming. It was terrible.
Oh man,
Yeah.
dangerous.
That
Fun
was
stuff.
Yeah.
Praise God for we didn't have social media.
Oh my word. Yeah, RFK would be banning us as a
Oh
company
man,
right
no
now.
kidding, no
And
kidding.
we really didn't know. I mean, just,
Yeah.
unfortunately, just a tiny too much, and somebody
Yeah.
poops a Smurf, and there you go. So
That's right.
love that, man. But what a lot
By the
of
way, we
invention.
don't do that anymore.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
wanna
sorry.
set
Yeah,
the
now that we
record.
do-
He has improved so
I know. Now that we use
so
natural
much.
flavors and colorings, it's all better. So
Oh,
well
that's
said.
anyway. Eric, I think you're it.
All right. So every brand has its quirks. What's something most people don't know about how Bahama Bucks operates behind the scenes?
Wow. I think if I look at it now, the depth, we tease, we're like, it's just the snow. It's just island desserts. But when you see how many people are on the marketing team and IT and the warehouse and, everything from field ops and field development to, every team that we have, we've got a building with 60 plus people in it that are there to support our brand. I mean, we've got a huge support center. And I think that's what people don't know. It's not that we're just a snow. We just want to be the greatest snow on earth. And that takes a lot of intentionality. But what I think is uniquely special about it, if I can say it that way, is when you get everyone kind of aligned on that same goal, where we're all pulling for the same thing. And we were talking to a person that we recently, that, you know, they've been with the company less than a year, and they were talking about, man, you really nail the people side of it. The people you hire are great. I love everyone I work with. And so I would echo that. What's uniquely special about us is what you see in the shops a lot of time, where we are serving a mini vacation and we are trying to serve the greatest snow on earth, or, you know, tropical, you know, anything that we put out. We want it to be done with excellence. And I'd say the same thing about our people. They love working with each other. We've built a strong culture, and it takes a lot of intentionality. And so I think that's been something that most people don't know, is how hard everybody works to make that pay off. Because it doesn't matter if you're part of finance or, you know, R&D or whatever it is, everybody's, you know, pushing on that same goal.
I think when I think about quirkiness, though, if you've worked in a shop, there's a couple things, you know, like ice texture. And when you're training that and you see a snow, you're like, no, that's not good. And they have no idea. They're like, what's wrong? And you're like, it's crunchy, or, you know, and the sounds that you have to have coming from the ice, you know, making the snow, and exactly how much flavor goes in it. And if you've worked in a shop long enough, you can pick up a snow and go, and you know.
Yeah.
But those are quirky things that you have to have been in a store to know those things. And, you know, I remember when the three of us worked in shops, we didn't have a kitchen display. We didn't have Revel. And I could look at a snow and tell you if it was strawberry daiquiri, strawberry cheesecake, tiger's blood, red raspberry, all those red flavors, they all had just a little bit. But those are those quirky things as you start working in a shop, you're like, you got to remake that. And you know that it's crunchy, or the texture's not right, or the shaver's not right, or the ice isn't correct, or something is quirky, but it makes all the difference. But that's a quirky thing about Bahama Bucks that people they think, oh, you turn on the machine and it's all the same. It's like, no, it's not. And that's what sets us apart, is when you've worked in the shop long enough, you know, we do serve the greatest snow on earth because we're pretty quirky about it. So
Well, and along those lines, I was going to say our staff as well, because most of our staff worked in a store. And I don't know how quirky that is, but you can't get away with some things you might normally do because they know, because they've been there and they've worked in there. But at the same time, it can create a little bit of an interesting dynamic when you have different ideas from people that have all worked in a shop on how to do it the right way.
yeah.
And so, you know, I was watching a little bit when we had this new piece of equipment to make ice. You know, there was a lot of hesitancy to bring in a piece of equipment that you didn't shave with to make the snow. And there was a lot of skepticism because our snow is the best. It's the softest. You can't do it other than the old way. And so it took us back a little bit to make sure that was what everybody was going to get behind, because we'd all worked in that and we had grown up in that environment and believed in that. Yeah. I'd say the other quirky thing a little bit maybe for us is the smell of our flavors that we're making. People comment about it oftentimes. You know, it's how it smells so good in there because
in our
of what
office and stuff.
Yes, and so that's a little different. People come in, except for pickle day.
Yeah.
Pickle day, everybody knows it's terrible. It smells terrible in the office, and so that's a little quirky as well.
Takes me back, Eric, to pickle relish, those sweet relish days. No, yeah, there's some quirky things definitely, but I think that's what sets us apart. Yeah. So I don't mind it. What's the secret sauce to a lasting business partnership?
Wow.
I mean, it's trust. I think I trust my life with both of you guys. I mean, there's no way we could run this together and not trust each other. So, and I think that to me too, I look back at some of those really lean days when you talk about those board meetings, we still found the space to laugh, and we found the space to joke with each other. And I mean, we would end a board meeting and I would always be in tears. But for some reason at the end, we'd end up hugging and laughing and finding something to smile about, you know, and that's, I think that builds a lasting business if you can find some joy along the way, and you have to trust each other. But that's
good.
Yeah, that's really good. And I would echo that as well, Kippi. I mean, because trust is built over time sometimes. But I think what one of the things when we looked at is, along with trust, you got to have there's got to be a deep respect and a fair amount of love for each other, because you're going to, even though you trust somebody, there are opportunities we have to forgive one another. So not only did we learn to trust each other, we learned to fight well and reconcile well. And I think all of us being able to say, I'm sorry, all of us being able to reconcile and say, hey, man, that was me. I just misunderstood, or I misspoke, or whatever. Because in those lean days, it's real easy to start just trying to, go inward and hang on to what you think would be yours. But I think just that deep respect, that deep love, and the ability to say, hey, man, I'm sorry. Let's keep moving through this. So kind of a heart of reconciliation is what I would add to that as well.
And I would say that I'd echo that. I would just add probably a faith in that you got to have between each other, and you guys, without question, I know where your faith is, so I can lean into that and know that y'all are doing the right things for the right reasons for the brand, and I feel like that's what our brand, we've got to have those core values, and I feel like that filters down to all of our staff, and they know that. So. Yeah. I'd say that
even if you lock him in the freezer, you got to be able to say, hey, man, my bad.
Right. Dude, we were just trying to teach you a good lesson, brother. We love you.
Well said. So how has the dynamic worked with all three of us in leadership roles? Do each naturally fall into different roles, or has it evolved over time? I think this is similar, but in a lot of ways different. Dynamic work with all three of us in leadership.
I think for me, it's easy to spot my weaknesses. So I'm not your construction person. I never have been, never will be. And, we had this one segment that we were training and watching with our staff one year. And it was a guy, and I can't remember what the thing was, but his emphasis on it was, don't try to improve where you're average. Or below average, because all you'll ever be is probably average in that area. Meaning, I'm not good in English, so I could sit there and devote all my time and energy and become average at best in that field. Take my strength though, work on that, and I make myself much more valuable for the group. So if I can, if it's numbers for me, if I'll just help get stronger in that area, which I love and which makes me stronger, that could help the group much more than being average somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I think in the leadership side of things, understand what you're weak at, and then find people that are good at that, either if they're with you in leadership, or hire them into an area that's going to make you better as a group overall.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Anything from you?
I mean, I think we've still just kind of gone into where we're strong, but we lean on each other for multiple things. And I think one thing that Eric, even though you are very numbers and data driven, there is a side of you have, it's not always black and white. You are very kind-hearted. You're willing to listen to new ideas, and I think we all collaborate really well together. And we've had to go through a lot of hard stuff, and we remember those times when we had to collaborate too. So, but I think we still fall in our strengths, and I love that. I feel that's just God's blessing over putting the three, and Tom and Cindy too, all of us together.
Well, I find it as a relief, honestly, that I don't have to try to do things that I'm terrible at all the time, and so it's very much, gratifying for me not to have to invest time or energy in that.
And I think something we learned, although it was intuitive to us, it was not intuitive to everyone. So once we realized with the franchise family and with our support center family and Avalanche crew and all of that, is we needed clear goals and clear roles. They needed to know, you're the chief operating officer. If I have these problems, I go straight to Kippi. Eric's a CFO. If I'm struggling on a P&L or I need additional advice here and here, and me as CEO, they knew where we were. And I think once we realized, okay, it's one thing to kind of intuitively know it, which we learned early, but then later on, we actually provided a lot of structure around it with, job descriptions and things like that, because there had to be clarity throughout. And I think once we understood the clarity, it helped us really own those, points of strength and things that we went through. So I would just add clear roles and clear goals were pretty important.
All right. Actually, I'm done. That was my first one. Okay.
All right. Okay, Eric, let's close this section with this. Eric, how has Bahama Bucks impacted you And what is your dream for the future of Bahama Bucks?
Wow, that's pretty deep. Okay, so I would say starting out, as a college student, that when you're looking for and trying to make a decision, I'm there with my kids right now. I'm trying to help them, direct them on a life path. And so what you're looking for, in my opinion, from, an opportunity that I was given, was a way to, use my gifts and abilities, but not only that, but be surrounded with people that had a like-mindedness as me. I can't tell you how many people that I run into that, just don't have the right culture that they enjoy, that they being around. They don't have friends in their business environment that they can turn to and trust. And so that's been a huge blessing for my life over the last 35 years, was to be involved with people that I could enjoy coming to work to try to, they gave me a chance to use what I had in the right way, and that I could totally trust and have faith in. And so you just don't find that very often.
Yeah, well said. What do you think about the future? Where do you see the future of Bahama Bucks?
So I feel like we're just an unknown brand. Now I say that we have really good sales if you compare us to competition, but we're untapped. And so part of me, it's like when I drive by it, like I did last night, I'm driving by the shops just to see, are we busy? I'm counting the cars, I'm looking at that, and I'm like, dude, we're not near as busy as we should be. And that's my whole feeling about our concept is we have so many things that are untapped.
Yeah.
I think the future is huge. I don't know what that is. I just know that whenever we're coming together as a group, I'm seeing more innovations and more things from each department that are making us stronger. And whenever you're growing stronger, then you're beating the competition that's there, that's trying to figure it out. So I love the future of where we're headed and what we're going to do.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited about it.
All right, let's jump into some rapid fire here real quick. And I'm going to throw a question to each of you and see where you guys land here. Okay, one word that describes Bahama Bucks today.
Innovative.
Collaborative.
Oh, nice. Best sound.
Blake, you get to go.
Oh, I do?
Yeah.
One word that describes Bahama Bucks today.
Yeah.
Flavorful.
Nice.
Best soundtrack or song to a Bahama Bucks summer.
I mean, I'm going to go to the reggae. We used to listen to reggae all the time.
I was going to say that too. Bob Marley.
Yeah, Bob
Don't worry.
Marley, One
Absolutely.
Love. I just that we had CDs. We didn't have playlist, and so whatever 5 CDs you put in there, and Blake always made us listen to reggae.
It was on brand. I'm just saying. All right. We could play California Girls. We could do whatever. But
no.
Stay on brand.
Yeah.
All right. Who's most likely to come up with a wild idea during a meeting?
I don't know. Eric comes up with some crazy ideas
Yeah.
too, though. But I would say you have a lot of crazy ideas.
I do invite Eric to meetings just for that sole purpose, because he's going to say something so far out of the box that everybody's like, really?
So I always usually start by saying, okay, I got a lot of bad ideas. So stay with me. There might be one that pops up here. But yeah, I'd say Blake usually has a lot more ideas.
I don't know if they're wild idea. I think you take the cake there, sir. All right. Most underrated flavor.
I'm going to say peach.
Oh, yeah.
So you can add cream to it. You can add other flavors to it. You can make that really good. But it's very underrated. It doesn't sell that well, but it's a good flavor.
Okay. I'll take that one. What do you got, Kippi?
I mean, one that I don't even know where it ranks. Banana. Banana is the Laffy Taffy. I went on a banana kick for a long time, and it's an underrated flavor, but it is a good flavor.
I got you there. Okay. The two that I'll go with is jungleberry, because if you love berries, it's all the berries.
Yep.
And then cotton candy it tastes
Really
just
good.
like cotton candy.
Really good.
Yeah.
And it's so underrated because it actually, you can eat it. It doesn't disappear the moment you eat it. So I'm going to go with cotton candy as well.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
There's some good ones.
Very good.
Are there any stories stories you feel like you didn't get to touch on that you
Oh,
want to?
I've got one I've got to say.
Oh, let's do it.
So this is back in the Phoenix days, and so we were working in the stores. And back then, you got the store closed at 2:00. You'd get out about 2 a.m. from cleaning. So as a bachelor, the laundromat was down in the center of my apartment complex. So I would do my laundry after we get off shift at 2 a.m. because there was nobody down there doing laundry, and I had the run of the mill. So I was a dirty shaver, meaning that I had my gloves, they were always getting syrup on them, and they would break. I'd stick them in my pockets of my shorts and get the next pair. Well, over time, they would stain, and red is one of our most popular flavors, so it was bleeding through red. So I go down there at 2 a.m., take my laundry down there in my shorts, and there's a little girl that happens to be down there doing laundry at 2 a.m. She looks at me. She looks at my shorts that are red. I start pulling gloves, broken gloves, out of the pockets of my shorts. Her eyes got about that big, and she got out of that place really fast.
Oh, Eric. There's
Only you,
so
man.
many.
Yeah.
Only you.
There's so many stories, though.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That is hysterical.
One of the things that we talked about early years, but I love that you had the Buick Somerset and the AC went out and you couldn't afford to fix the AC.
So that was the thing in Phoenix, had that car. It was an older car. My friends in college called it the Must-mobile because I had a condensation leak or something in it and it smelled horrible.
Yeah.
And then the AC goes out. And so
And the seatbelt.
there was a seatbelt problem. Anyway, so the problem is in Phoenix, there's not a lot of wind that blows. And you'd think that's really nice, except if you're on the interstate, stuck in 115 degree heat, and you're melting in that thing. And so for 3 years, I drove that car without air conditioning. And when you'd get out, before you go to a meeting, you'd be stuck to the back because you'd sweated
So bad.
into the back of it, and you'd have to pull yourself a little bit out of the seat in order to get out, and you'd have a ring around your shirt because it'd been so hot. So hot. So,
Needless to say, you were one cool dude.
yeah. That car, I would leave it, windows rolled
down.
down, unlocked, basically the door open, just hoping somebody would take that thing. I was looking for insurance money.
Do you also remember one of my favorite stories? I think we were eating at Filiberto's. I can't remember, but ATMs had just really made a big surge in us. Well, it was more ATMs were out when we were in the 90s, but when we moved to Arizona, they had no bank tellers. They forced you to do ATMs. So we really got to learn. We had a learning curve there. But Blake and I went over and we had $100 check that we were given, and we deposited it in the ATM right next to Filiberto's.
Yep.
And we were eating lunch, and we put the check, deposited. That was a whole new thing that you could deposit your checks, and we hit too many zeros.
Yeah.
When we deposited
As $1 million.
$1 million. Do you remember that, Eric?
I remember coming back to the office,
Yeah.
and there was a phone bank, and it would tell you your balance. And Blake said, "Hey, you need to listen to this."
Yeah. And we told Eric, we said, hey, Blake, so we accidentally put in $1 million. Obviously, we did not have $1 million.
They found the mistake.
They found the mistake quickly. But it printed out our receipt, and it said we deposited $1 million. And Blake's like, oh, I've got to show this to Eric. So we get back to the office, and you called, and it said our balance. We should have
I
taken
was like,
advantage.
dude, I won the lottery. You're going to love this.
You
He's
did?
like,
You
no,
told Eric?
get out of here. I was like, listen to this. And I dial it up, speakerphone. Your balance is $1,034. And I'm like, yeah.
Holy cow!
We went crazy. Anyway,
That was
It got
great.
quickly rectified, I think, in about 30 minutes. But I
Yeah.
remember that joke. And that was like,
great.
Eric was like, dude, no way. I
that
was
spoke
like,
financial piece to you for sure. You were like,
Yeah, you went
"Yes,
back
sir."
there. You put another $1 million in. Just
Yeah, just see if they keep it rolling. Yeah, it was funny about that evening. They had it corrected. I don't know.
Well, and we talk about the color poofs happening in Arizona, and that was in our old warehouse. And did we have evap cooler back there? Or any? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then when that happened in our corporate office here in Lubbock, not the one we're in now, but the one prior.
Yeah.
And the UPS driver brought that box in of the blue, and it had the powder, and it had busted open. Eric immediately went into emergency 911 mode.
Yeah.
So my office sat right there close to the entrance, and I could see out a window. I could see this guy from UPS, and I could see him hunching over, and this thing was spilling
Yep.
of blue. And we were like, oh my word. And he brings that thing into the office. It went everywhere.
Yeah,
Yep.
we shut the whole office down. Remember, we said nobody move, everybody out of the office because it was a sea of blue. After
So
that.
then it took us forever to get the office cleaned. And then we noticed people coming in from outside. They looked like little Smurf prints all over the floor. They'd come in the office and it was blue. They were coming in because the whole parking lot was covered in blue. And
But
so
you
they were
couldn't see it. It was just a very fine
it was picking
blue
up off
dust.
their feet, their soles
so
of their
bad.
shoes. So we had to spray down the whole parking lot. And it was like a river of blue out
We have
there.
pictures of it, and it just looks like blue everywhere. And then remember the UPS driver said they had blue on their packages
that's right.
for months.
Yeah,
Yes.
remember they traced it all the way back to like New Jersey where it broke or something,
Yep.
and every truck was blue.
That was
So,
crazy.
That was bad.
good stuff.
That was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. But lesson learned. We don't touch that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
It's the lesson learned. No, some good stuff. But lots of fun memories.
Yeah, it's been an honor, guys. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for serving well, and here's to the next 35 years. So well done.